Welcome to another live stream, Legends. Well, guys, Bitcoin has seen some ugly price action recently if you are trying to be more of a bull recently. Unfortunately, the price has been pulling back quite aggressively over the last couple days, and I was quite vocal about this. I actually had a public stream yesterday where I was giving reasons why I was shorting up here on this triangle retest, but basically, I've been talking about this little bit of a triangle recently. I'm not a huge breakout trader, but I was willing to look at this as a little bit of confluence. The fact that the measured move, that was weird, but the measured move basically lined up from the breakout point that it would have retested all-time highs pretty much perfectly. And on top of that, there was, high leverage liquidations up at that level. And there still is. That's why, guys, I don't want to rule the bulls out yet. I still think there's absolutely a possibility that we end up going to the upside, grabbing all this liquidity to the upside, even if we are going to start some sort of a more serious bear market type of thing. And I don't know if we're going to, right? But just even if we are going to do that, it's still very possible we go up here, because as far as looking at it like a market maker, I mean, you would want to grab as much of that liquidity as you could before reversing the price. So unfortunately, I was really hoping we were going to do that basically with this breakout, but it's not like that's out of the picture yet. The problem right now is there is actually quite a bit of liquidity to both sides of us. We have lost that triangle pattern as far as a breakout, and the breakout of the downside actually looks a little bit more convincing to me because it's much more accurate on the three exact touch points of this trend line before ending up dropping it, and basically right now retesting that. So we're basically right now retesting that old support line as new resistance. So on top of that, guys, I want to zoom in a little bit further. Let's go to the 1 hour. I'm going to remove the trend master at this point. So we are technically back up into that triangle a little bit, but guys, something that I take more serious than trend lines on their own is obviously my Stuber fibs, and on the 1 hour we have just basically tested up to the 886. So this is just looking at the very micro structure of this 1 hour chart. Basically the way I'd be looking at this is the last point where we saw some sort of a reversal, and by reversal I literally just mean a bounce of any kind, and then ending up losing that level, and this is the next place we ended up getting a bounce. So that's our lower low on a very micro time frame, right? So that's where the highest point between the two is right here. That's why I'm pulling my bearish fib from that level, because from the highest point I'm looking for the bearish reversal. And at this point, I mean, if I was looking to play the trend, I would more so be looking for shorts in this pocket right here rather than looking too long into it. Now, on the 5 minute, I can zoom in. We actually did break the very micro downtrend on the 5 minute. So it's even possible that we end up, let's say, pull back, end up getting some sort of a reversal like that. It's possible. I'm not very bullish right now, so I don't really want to go that route. I would rather wait for 1 hour confirmations at this point, just because it's such an aggressive trend. But we did have this little bit again. Yes, it's totally micro analyzing, I understand that, guys, but this was our low, this is our lower low, this would be the lower high on the trend. And notice when we broke that, we did get a little push to the upside, and so far we're still holding the support that we've basically created, right, since we went a little bit higher. So as long as we're holding that, it's still okay. But the fact that we came into contact with the 1 hour resistance is why I have a little bit of concerns on that trend, and why we might see a bit of a reversal here. So basically my plan is this. Since I look at the 1 hour, I am still in a good chunk of my short, about 40% of my short from 111 to 24. And since basically if we end up invalidating this micro trend, I want to lock in the rest of my profits on this, just to make sure I pay myself as much as possible on this. And basically if we end up invalidating this theory that, hey, this is our downtrend on the 1 hour, if we invalidate that, even if we see a pullback, it's quite likely that we come and retest the tops of this range at some point. And that's where I would be looking for a bigger fib pull. Basically, we would have to revisit the idea of, looking for if we are going to respect resistance if we end up getting to these levels at that point. But basically at this point, as far as the micro trend goes, we are just technically respecting resistance right now on this little downtrend. So be careful with that. As well, this is something I've been talking about for about 3 weeks, you guys. This order block that we ended up losing and so far retesting or respecting that support as new resistance is very, very alarming to me at this point. This is on the weekly time frame. So basically, looking at just candle bodies, this is where we had our candle bodies closing. This was our highest ever candle body close, but this is basically where the bears lost their momentum. They tried to reverse the price to the downside, but we ended up getting our higher close instead. So this is where we have our order block from, basically, and we ended up losing that level, coming back up last week and, you know, closing a green candle healthily inside that pocket, but not above. And even right now, we are still basically just wicked above on our recent pumps, and we're respecting that at that old support as new resistance, basically. Now, to be fair, we have not lost this support level yet. We have not invalidated this 115 setup yet. But as far as how we are treating this old support as new resistance on the weekly block like that, I have very large concerns about that. I would feel a lot better if we could get a candle body close above my red box. Even if we closed around here, okay, there's still, you know, the possibility we're not closing below these wicks. It's still possible we're finding support. It just looks really weak, and the fact that where we're getting rejected here on the weekly has me concerned. And also the fact that obviously this does not have to play out the same, but as I mentioned in my last few streams, we are technically at the end of a typical 4-year cycle as far as how long we go from bear market bottom to bull market peak. We are basically right on time for some sort of a crazy reversal. I am not saying that this has to happen again, because fractals can break. I mean, they break all the time, right? Patterns always end up breaking eventually. But at this point, this pattern hasn't broke yet. The trend is your friend until the end. And the fact that we're seeing very alarming price action forming right on schedule for a macro shift like that, that's why I have very large concerns about this market right now. Also, the RSI. If we would have seen the RSI end up climbing back above my divergence, basically, because this is just a perfect bearish divergence here. If we would have ended up getting our RSI back into overbought territory, I would have said, you know, at this point, that looks like there is a shit ton of buying pressure in the market. But the fact that we keep diverging and dropping to the downside instead, you know, basically at this point, the relative strength index is showing that there's actually less strength while we're trading at the same level we were back here, basically, right? We actually have stronger bearish momentum at this point at the same level. So, because again, this is the RSI, relative strength index, and the strength is lower, and we're at the same support level. So, yeah, it's absolutely possible that we find support here. But just understand that it's not guaranteed. It's not promised the way that a lot of very large influencers out there on social media, on X, are promising that we are going parabolic. We're promised an altcoin cycle and all this sort of stuff. Guys, there is tens of millions of different coins out there now. It's alt season is completely different than it used to be. Yeah, there's going to be some that will perform well, but you're going to have to actually get in on coins that do perform well. It's not going to be like the last couple cycles where you could just YOLO into anything, hold on, and you're going to do well. It's very different this cycle. And yeah, so unfortunately at this point, I would love to see an alt season, guys. But I think it's going to be a select few coins that end up doing extremely well, if that even happens. Don't get me wrong, there'll be a lot of them if it does happen, but it's not going to be all of them. Nothing like what we've had in the previous cycles. So at this point, we're going to have to see what happens with Bitcoin here. I have my concerns, you guys. Even the fact right where we're getting rejected right now, that is literally textbook Stuber fib on a very micro time frame. So my first target for this rejection would basically be down here around 107.2k. Second target would be around 106.7k. And from there, I mean, if we end up setting a new lower low, something like that, at that point, I would be pulling a new fib, because we would have a low. We'd have a new lower low. That would confirm the highest point between the two as my new lower high on the trend, and then I would have a fib pulled, basically something like that. But that's only if that price action happens, right? At this point, that's just theoretical. That is not confirmed structure at this point. So, and guys, there's something that I want to talk about with Zcash in particular, because obviously there was crazy FOMO around this one because it's been on a ridiculous run, you guys. It went from something like $50 to $375. But the reason why I was mentioning in my public streams recently that I was interested in shorting this one is because a lot of people, and I saw it on X even just yesterday, guys, as we were getting back up to this resistance level, I started to see the FOMO posts around it again. People were saying that nothing can stop Zcash. This drop was just a fake out, all that sort of stuff. And they were saying it right as we got back to my 786, right as we were approaching 358, 360, somewhere in there. The bulls got very vocal about the fact that it was unstoppable. But guys, there's a very big difference between the price looking strong because we are just simply retesting resistance and it looks like we're going to break out, versus retesting resistance after a very serious market structure break. Right? So even though this is where, again, I look at it as microstructure, but as far as each individual swing goes, we have not seen many of these losses basically since $50. This coin has only seen it a few times, and this time back here was about a 30% drop to the downside, and this time here ended up being about a 25% drop to the downside. And we got that same sort of structure break here where we actually had a confirmed higher low that ended up getting broken. And that's one of those times, guys, where this is where, again, where people get the misunderstanding. If this just ended up coming down here and ended up coming back up to resistance, I would feel very different about it. It's not so much that I would be bullish. I would still be cautious because resistance is resistance until it's broken. But the fact that we broke that structure and then just get a retest, guys, if we see that on the 5-minute, we know, like, that's the kind of structure you want to look for to have momentum on your side, right? This is basically my confirmation that, hey, I want to short this, but that doesn't mean that I'm shorting the breakout, right? I'm not shorting into support, because so often when you break a level like that, you end up getting a retest, and you get that. That's why I refer to these Stuber fibs as perfect bull traps and perfect bear traps on the opposite side of things, because people, like, you really see it on X, guys, that the mind shift is wild when you end up hitting that 786 fib on any sort of larger time frame swing. You see people's emotions coming out and they start basically claiming, oh, here we go, we're bullish again. But that's literally where you're getting that bearish retest, right? So obviously this could reverse at any time. I mean, this trade setup has already played out. I've actually played it out 3 times last night. We ended up hitting the 786, hit my first target, updated stop loss to break even, ended up entering again at the 886, hit my first target, got stopped out at break even again, and re-entered at the 786 again, ended up hitting my first 2 targets, and then I actually ended up taking a little more profits. I still have about 40% of that position running as well, my short on that. But at this point, if the rest gets stopped out at break even, whatever, at least it was a good trade. I would still be interested in looking for shorts. Basically, I would start looking closer towards some sort of a swing fail would be ideal. But even if we end up showing weakness at the new 786, 886, I could actually, even looking at a smaller time frame trend, we could say that this is our low, this is our lower low. Here's our lower high on the trend. So I could pull a fib from here and look for that Stuber there. As well, where is this one showing? That is really screwing with my eyes right now. Where is that? Okay, that is the Algo Master is still showing it from all-time highs. This actually isn't a valid Stuber, the one on the Algo Master, because it has been broken already. It did play out. I'll give it that. This indicator absolutely nailed that short setup because it had a fib pulled from our highs here down to our lows here. We came to that fib pocket that it's calling out and we hit the first couple of targets, right? So it actually did play out, but at this point it's no longer valid is the only thing. Yeah, that is, again, the fact that it has another lower low, that is bad for the trend. But once again, to see this bounce after that is totally reasonable. And that's why we pay ourselves along the way, right? Because so often, even if your trade is going to continue in your favor, so often you just see that break of structure followed by that pullback. Everyone knows that that's how you're supposed to trade, that you're supposed to look for pullbacks and retests and that sort of thing. But when the time comes, it's very hard to actually stick to that game plan. To actually buy support and sell resistance is incredibly difficult for most people. I was mentioning as well, I started a bit of an aster long position. We're basically where my entry is right now. This is going to be a small position because I do not trust this, but the invalidation, I shouldn't say small, but the invalidation is tight. The risk is small for sure. But I basically have a few more entries on the way down towards the bottom of my green box here. So I'd be bringing my average entry a lot closer to my invalidation. And at that point, the only reason I'm playing this, you guys, is specifically a risk reward type of setup. It is trying to hold support in between my 1 and my 115. That's my typical swing fail zone. The fact that it is trying to hold that level right now, I'm willing to ladder in for a nice tight invalidation, basically, because that's where you can get, if we end up getting all the way down, I mean, even from where we are right now. Well, that risk reward doesn't matter because it would be more like this if I got stopped out. But even getting to my first target, you're looking at a 7-to-1 risk reward. Second target, you're looking at 11-to-1. If we retest the top of the range, you're looking at 14-to-1 risk reward. Now, obviously, I would be taking profits along the way. If at any point I look at my position and I feel to myself, if I round trip this, am I going to be upset? At that point, I will lock in some of my profits. And it's as easy as that. It doesn't need to be a close it all or nothing kind of a thing. I can always just take some profits and then update my stop loss or whatever, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at for aster at this point. How has everyone been feeling about the market? Have these moves been completely blindsiding you guys, or has it been fairly predictable? I mean, even looking at this 4-hour trend, guys, so let's actually look at market structure here, even on the 4-hour. Let's remove my triangle, get rid of that, get rid of my fibs and everything. You know what? Yeah, let's get rid of all of this. So let's just look at this market structure for what it is, guys. Let's say even where our last upswing was, right? Let's take a look at just this move right here, that little climb we had. Notice that this is where I'm going to talk about that microstructure once again and show you that as micro as it seems, it's actually respected very well, you guys. Is even on a little trend like this, notice that. So after we set, well, let's just treat this as our high. This is our higher high, confirmed higher low. 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 We break it here, and then so therefore we have our new low. We have a new confirmed pivot point. Then from here, here's our low, here's our lower low, confirmed lower high. Lower low, confirmed lower high. Lower low. Well, we have the same confirmed lower high at this point. Yeah. So again, I know it's micro-analyzing you guys, but just having an understanding of basically confirming market structure, being able to point out lower lows, lower highs, higher lows, higher highs, that goes so much further than trying to analyze the entire global economy. Everybody pays so much attention to announcements. You know, that FOMC meeting yesterday, I literally didn't know what the outcome of that was until about 4 hours after it happened. I did not care because I actually went out of my way to avoid it until I was in positions because I didn't want it to cloud my judgment. So many people think that they're going to get an edge by that type of fundamentals. They are going to trade a low time frame chart with high leverage and think that they're going to trade fundamentals. Well, guys, I mean, it's so much easier to make a misunderstanding when trying to analyze the entire global economy versus a few basic structure levels, a few basic higher highs, higher lows, lower highs, lower lows. Let's even look at Bitcoin basically from the highs here. Let's just go back. This whole little bit of structure here, I can see one little bit of a fake out, but that's about all. But again, just as far as guys, I know this is actually quite basic stuff, but it is so basically the most important part that I feel in trading is just very, very basic understanding of market structure. It will go so much further than pretty much anything else that you could ever dream of. But let's just look at this for what it was. So our last, and again, micro analyzing, call it what it is. But let's say this was our high. That's our last higher high. This was the lowest point between the two. When we ended up breaking that, notice that this turned into our pivot point. We never ended up breaking above that again, right? That's where our downtrend started. So basically, after we ended up having this low, lower low, so this is where I would say that there was a couple very small ones that ended up breaking, but the downtrend itself was never broken. Is the fact that we got this lower low here, confirmed lower high. This is the one point where sure, you could say on a very micro level that ended up getting a bit of a fake out, but after that, let's just consider this case. We end up getting our next low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Lower low, where would it be? I guess it would be basically the same, and then lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high. So on even the 1 hour like this, that very basic market structure, no matter how micro analyzing it looks, being able to kind of just block out the noise and just look at very basic levels like that, it really goes a long ways, you guys. This downtrend is very predictable if you just look at that very basic market structure and ignore everything you've been told about if the rate cuts happen, if we get any sort of rate cut that we're going straight to the moon. If you can get rid of that mentality and just ignore the noise, because let's face it, guys, the influencers with the biggest followings on X, on any social media platform, they are generally the people who just say what you want to hear, and that's why they have such large followings. Just be careful with that. There's a very large difference between an influencer and a trader, and there's very few people out there that I find with large followings who I actually, trust their own analysis as much as mine, kind of a thing. So always just when it comes to trading, you guys, a very important lesson is basically the best thing you can do is take all responsibility on yourself. Understand that you are your biggest asset and also your biggest enemy, and do a shit ton of back testing. The best thing you could ever do for yourself when it comes to actually trading is, yes, fundamentals do matter. Don't get me wrong. They will help push the market in a certain direction, but trying to trade them is incredibly difficult, and market structure will show you if those fundamentals are going to matter anyways. So your best bet, your best edge on the market is actually understanding your probabilities of a trade setup. If you don't have take profits set when you enter a position, or stop losses, if you don't have those take profits and those invalidations set up ahead of time, you don't have a valid trade setup, right? You need to have something systematic that you can repeat time and time again and understand the probabilities of it. So that's where using this replay feature and doing a little bit of homework on Tradingview, I mean, I know most traders would rather lose $10,000 rather than to do 10 hours of homework. But honestly, like when I first started trading, I used to backtest charts so much. Hours every week. Every week I was probably putting in 5 to 10 hours of backtesting because I wanted to learn how charts work. I didn't care about reading headlines every day. I still don't. I just want to basically, I can pull out my phone, look at a chart, and within 10 seconds, I know if I want to look in further or not. I know the answer if I want to enter a position, or if I need to start looking at where my entries would be. I can spot that out very quickly versus trying to read entire news articles, several of them, to get an unbiased opinion, and then try and make sense of how the whole global economy is going to react that way. I would rather put in the homework of just back testing charts and then trade the charts for what they are. You have your invalidations in place in case your theories are wrong. You have your take profits in place in case you are correct. That's basically what it comes down to. We need to do homework. There's a reason you quit school. Yeah, that's fair. But this is fun homework. It's more fun than it sounds. Zeus, interest in BNB is... oh, there we go. Look at Aster, just mooning. Guys, the bottom's in, right? Just kidding. BNB, I was watching that one recently. I haven't traded it since I ended up... I know I took a short on this. It hasn't come down to my support pocket yet. I know I had shorted this. That would have been the last time that I ended up taking a trade on this. I don't have that running anymore or anything. I closed that even before my first take profit. But yeah, that's a volatile one. What's the Trendmaster saying on that one? I assume it has a sell signal. Yeah, ooh, it has a lower sell signal. That's a big warning for me. That is a warning. Warning shot fired. What kind of last time we got that, there was about a 7 or 8% correction. Yeah, currently at like a 7% correction. So, well, we'll see. That is a big warning to me, though. A lower sell signal on the Trendmaster. I do take that pretty seriously. I would rather see it break above 1180. I mean, a few dollars higher, basically 1185, whatever you want to call it. I think we would need to get above that to confirm that it's a strong trend at that point. But, you know, there's potential support as well. Nothing's really jumping at me on the 4 hour right now. What do we got there? We do have technically a higher low there. You go something like that. Ooh, what do we got there? It is fighting the Trendmaster, but there is technically a Stuber fib there. Basically hit the 886 damn near perfectly. I wouldn't be taking a new long right now, basically, because we are well on our way to my first target there. But yeah, if you were in some longs from down a little bit lower, that's decent looking. Good to have the streams back to a decent time again. It's always the same for me. I don't change my clock. I'm not weird like all you people changing your clocks. We don't do that here. We can't handle that. Can't comprehend it, so we don't even try. Oh, Bitcoin is still trying to climb. It might end up... Yeah, I think the rest of my stop loss is around 108. I think it's 666. I know it's a little bit above 108.6. But yeah, in that case, if we end up doing that, I will lock in the rest of my short position. And I still do have a chunk of my long position running as well from 104, about 104.8, 104.787 to be exact. But yeah, that was basically, so that wasn't even actually a valid Stuber, but it was just looking at this as, hey, we filled the scam wick, as it's commonly referred to as. I often say that it's more so predicting the future and saying where we're going to trend to. But basically pulling a fib from that kind of structure, although again, it's not an actual valid Stuber, but it did respect the same type of fib pocket. So I got my 786 order there. And that's why I still have a chunk of that position running. Even now, I have not closed the remaining 40% on that guy because I hit my first two main targets. I took a little more when we were near the highs, just because, you know, all of my fib levels basically. But I still have some running with a break-even stop, just like, you know, basically, well, same as my Zcash position, right? Am I still in that? Yet still in it so far with a break-even stop, because basically I love being in those stress-free positions where I know that, hey, I have already paid myself, and from here I have a risk-free position. I don't have FOMO to get into anything new, nothing like that. Not going to make silly mistakes and that kind of thing. So it's very stress-free. The fact that I have a long position, a short position, another short position, another long position. I mean, I feel good about my positions. Got a few good ones on the go. And I love to see that we are reclaiming this support. So it is starting to look like more of a swing fail, especially if we can get this candle body closing above 92 cents approximately for Aster. That would look good as well. But yeah, so far looking okay on that one. Yeah, BNB, can't complain with that. I agree with, or I guess, sorry, Zeus, you never specified if you were bullish or bearish on BNB. You just said it was fun recently. But I assume you were looking at something like that. Is it winter or summer? I'm an hour off from what part of the US? Or do you mean us? My part of Canada does not change its clocks. Oh, that's interesting, Zeus. Yeah, I haven't looked at the funding or anything. That's usually above me anyways, but currently long. But yeah, trading it both ways. Just been nice with funding at almost even. Yeah, that's your perfect scenario if it's not costing much for fees or anything. Why change clocks with the Arctic Circle? It's like 18 hours a day. Man, when I was way up in northern Canada, yeah, the sunrise was like 11:30 and sunset was about 3:30. So yeah, you're not wrong. But like you said, that was closer to the Arctic Circle. I've still got daylight here, and it's about 6 p.m. Almost 6 p.m. I just want to clean up my lower time frame chart a little bit. By the way, great to see you here, Stock Poker. Don't see you in the streams too often. You're a busy guy nowadays. Love to see you. Hope all is well in the poker world. Well, so far, that 1 hour level that I was talking about. So this is actually a messy one. I mean, I'm pulling the fib from this wick here. It's tough to say. Either way, we're looking at resistance around the same area, right? Give it a little extra wiggle room with that. Either way, my stop is beyond the 115 anyways. Yeah, the Bulls have some work to do. They have some work, no matter what happens. Again, guys, I really don't think that it's unrealistic to think that we can go back to all-time highs. That's the thing. Like, if we look at this, it would be quite funny. I shouldn't say that because I know a lot of people ended up getting devastated from this this unexpected move we had here, but it was the same setup that we had back here. It was literally the same thing where we had a big... Oh, what am I doing? Oh, I am not on my fibs, but we basically had this fib pocket, right? We have this red box, the invalidation, or the swing fail, the exact opposite of, let's say, my Aster long position I was just talking about, just the pocket between the 1 and the 115, but looking for resistance there. that swing fail pocket, that's where we got that rejection. And then from there, on our next swing, again, we set new lows. Let's pull a new swing from our new high of the trend. And again, my red box here, the swing fail pivot zone, from the 1 to the 115, we get halfway in there and we end up nuking again. So again, that's the second time we've seen that. So now I don't see, I mean, it's very possible, the fact that there is liquidity up there and everything, it's very possible. Let's just bring up the liquidations levels. And again, we have liquidations on high leverage all the way up towards that swing fail pocket. So I don't want to say it's impossible. It's absolutely possible we end up going back up to those levels. It's just that we are seeing a lot of weakness in the charts showing up early and having a hard time getting any sort of follow through. But not all hope is lost yet. But it doesn't look great. I'll give it that. But yeah, guys, this is a warning ahead of time. I want to make it very clear right now. I'm not saying we can't break this resistance. That's the thing. The bulls could absolutely end up breaking this 4-year cycle. We end up smashing through these resistance levels and we just start staircasing higher. It is absolutely possible, right? But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying to get aggressive into looking for swing shorts down here as we're trading near support either. But if we end up getting back up towards our macro resistance levels, just start being careful again. That's where, at the very least, start considering not FOMOing long right into resistance for a third time at the same type of a trade setup, right? Just be careful. Respect resistance and respect support. It's always tempting to short into support. It's always tempting to long into resistance, but we know better than that. It's very hard to keep those emotions at bay. Logically, we know it's a thing, but those emotions are very hard to deal with. And that's exactly why I love using fibs, because my levels are there. It helps keep a level head. There's entry levels, there's invalidation levels, there's take profit levels. It's all there. It's very systematic. Not saying everyone should trade the exact same way as me. Obviously, everyone has their own strategies that work for them, but that's just why I really like fibs. Very systematic, easy to keep my emotions at bay. And guys, those of you who are here with me, by the way, I do have my own channel other than that StuTube Trading. That StuTube Trading channel, I just basically post these live streams there when I'm done. But for those of you who want to see more of like my public streams, I do them on the Crypto Trading channel, which I just started about a month ago or so. But I do shorter public live streams closer to that 20-25 minute mark pretty much every day. So if you do like how I look at market structure, pull fibs, look at the MDX ALGO indicators, all that sort of stuff, I'm doing all of that on this channel here pretty much every day, you guys, several times a week for sure. So make sure you check it out. Give it a subscribe there if you haven't checked it out yet. So that's basically, like a lot of you guys know, I was doing those public live streams on Financial Summit, but they gave me my own channel, still partnered with them and stuff as well. But yeah, just my own channel there. But yeah, looking at this structure, we are trying to break through it, but again, we just have to respect resistance, right? It's not saying we can't be bullish at this point, because we did break some microstructure levels. Even if we wanted to say like this as a low and this is our lower low, we broke that level as well. So I'm not saying we can't get some sort of a bounce. It's just one of those times where it's very likely that we see some sort of a rejection and retest support. Even if we go a little bit higher, I just have to assume that eventually we would end up retesting somewhere near this support level. Specifically somewhere in this general area. So basically, since we've broke a micro downtrend, if I wanted to look for a long position, I'd basically be chasing the price with a bullish fib, something like this. And I just don't like trading breakouts. So the fact that we broke that level, I still want to see some sort of a pullback, something like that. I will consider taking some long scalps if we end up getting back down to my support levels here. Closer to 106.7K would be slightly front running my 786 basically. But if we end up dropping 105.8K, I mean, downtrend carry on. Or if we end up, even if we end up getting some sort of a swing fail that we could get a long off of, Just at that point, we would technically have a lower low, and then we could start looking for a new bearish fib to look for other scalps to the bearish side, right? Well, it depends what kind of time frames you're trading, right? I mean, I'm comfortable trading both directions. I'm trading the 4 hour for swing positions. I'm also trading scalps on the 5 minute. Some days I'm trading the 1 minute a little bit. So it really depends on the person. But the important part, guys, and something I want to specify here is I understand not everybody wants to trade the 1 minute or the 5 minute like me. But the way I view market structure is still very much the same, right? When I'm looking at the 4 hour, for example, I'm still looking for those pullbacks. Right? A lot of people, that's where people start panicking. Oh my God, we're coming back down to this level. It's terrifying. But yeah, that's, if you're going to get some sort of a reversal, generally speaking, you retest support before absolutely blasting off, right? So I would rather long pullbacks. I would rather short retests. Breakout trading is dangerous. And we see it time and time again, and this is a perfect visual reminder. Anyone who tried to play the all-time high breakout there got absolutely wrecked. Anyone who tried to play the all-time breakout here, absolutely wrecked. And then we say it's manipulation, but in reality, it is, everybody was celebrating that the big players were going to get in the space. We just figured as small fish, we were just going to walk all over Wall Street and hedge funds and all that sort of thing because we know crypto better than they do. They came in and absolutely mopped the floor with retail, you guys. That's why we're seeing less breakout trading like previous market cycles. And that's why you still see those large influencers, getting bullish at resistance, for example, because they still have that breakout trading mentality that they might have, got lucky with in their earlier days or whatever. But just understand that, now that big players are in this space, they are more likely to, call it manipulation if you want, because they are controlling the price, because as any market, it's supply and demand. If there is more people selling than buying, the price is going down. And if they have all the money and they decide they want to push the price down, they can set up a sell wall, and it's very hard to break through that, right? So they are just absolutely devastating the crypto market, and we were all so sure that they were going to get into the space and FOMO in at all-time highs and pump our bags for us, because that's what those billion-dollar corporations have always been known for, is, FOMOing into all-time highs on things. No, they have way more patience, they have way more reserves, they have way more experience. That's just the sad reality, you guys, is when they got into the space, crypto has changed forever. Everyone said this cycle would be different, but it was different in a different way than everybody assumed. Everyone thought that the bags were all just going straight to the moon. That's unfortunately not how they operate. Those very smart, I don't even know if I should say very smart, but very experienced investor types that generally buy low and sell high and have the patience and that sort of thing. That's exactly it. They have the patience to wait for those pullbacks. They're willing to buy the pullbacks, whereas we need to be rich tomorrow, and that's why we FOMO into everything, right? Into a good daily close, could see that retest of 104 to 107. Let me just reload my chart here. I will bring up the daily, because the daily closes in about 10 minutes. I personally wouldn't call it a good close. It could be worse. It's not closing below structure, but it doesn't look great to me. Very possible we see a bounce, but just nothing's jumping out at me as bullish. I would say that it's not as bearish as it could be, but I have my concerns. Could see a retest of 104 to 107, you said. Would that, by chance, be something like this? Yep. So here's the thing with this, you guys. I've noticed a few people pointing this out as a bullish Stuber. And to be fair, there is this high and this higher high, therefore... Or wait, no, people were they saying this and then this? I'm not sure, but even if we pull a fib from here, there is no actual bullish Stuber fib in here. I just want to make that clear because, as I said earlier in the stream, we never did break a downtrend before getting our bounce. Not saying we can't find support there. I want to be clear about that as well. Obviously, we do have potential support. Even if we want to look at something like this, if we can hold that block, we're really not looking too bad yet. Something like so. Basically just like what I was looking at on Bitcoin on the weekly earlier, right? A bit of an order block there that pushed us higher. So as long as we're holding candle bodies above this, I mean, yeah, it's not looking too bad. Yeah, exactly. Seems like we're being ping-ponged in a massive range like ants by TradeFi. And exactly, right? They have the patience. We don't. You see so many people on social media saying that they can't handle, the manipulation and they can't handle how it's being forced to the downside and stuff. Guys, I mean, if people are serious about that, I understand a lot are trolling, but a lot are very serious about that. I don't know how people would think that another bear market is never possible. We have seen it many times before. We're going to see it again. Whether it's now or later, we're going to see it again. And this downtrend has barely broken the uptrend, right? Like if anything, if any sort of uptrend was broken, it was the fact that we had a high here, higher high here, higher low here, and we ended up breaking it, right? With a wick and also some candle bodies. Either way, we did technically break that. So at the very, very most, we have broken the macro uptrend, but there is almost barely any sort of starting of a downtrend yet on the macro time frame. So understand that it could get very, very much so worse. Doesn't have to, but if this liquidation event taught us anything a few weeks ago, when was that again? October 10th was the big day. So yeah, a few weeks ago tomorrow. If that big liquidation event has taught us anything a few weeks ago, it's that anything can happen and it can also happen quickly. So be ready for anything. Protect yourself. Just because everybody got wrecked doesn't mean that has to be the end of the bearish trend. We could absolutely go lower. But at the same time, as I mentioned, my bearish theories could get erased as well. We could absolutely go back to the highs and grab that liquidity, in which case my long will be running. I'll be taking more profits up at resistance again off of that if I get the opportunity. And if not, and we go to the downside, hopefully I'm in some short positions still at that point. Yeah, we could also bounce around from 95 to 125K like forever. Yeah, who knows? Exactly, right? That's why we trade the ranges first and we hope for a breakout second. But a lot of people just enter positions based on a range, but then they don't take profits in that range at the opposite end and they just expect the position to turn into a home run. But that's where I always say, like, by the time if we end up breaking out of a range, I will only have half of my position still running at that point because I always close half of my position in whatever range. Like if I pull a Fibonacci pull and I am playing it, let's just say theoretically, this is all theoretical at this point, but let's say that we end up into my swing fail zone like I was talking about, and we end up doing something like that, but I do play that swing fail short from here. Yeah, I'll be taking, quarter of my position. And if half can run into a full-on bear market, fantastic. If not, whatever, I'll take profits along the way as lower time frame structure breaks. I see other warnings going against it, whatever. I can always take more profits. Can always update a stop loss. But I play the range first, whether this was a 5 minute, a weekly, whatever. If that's the range that I have pulled and that's the range that I'm playing, my fib has my take profit levels, right? Again, that's why I love fibs. My take profit levels are there. Yeah, that 20K candle a few weeks ago happened after the New York stock exchange closed. Wait till the ETF banks or gangsters learn more that BTC can be getting tongue-tied, manipulated 24/7. Yeah, exactly. I mean, government officials have realized it. That's the thing. Absolutely, it's possible. The thing is, like, this move that we ended up getting, I mean, I was short. I shorted 125.2K just because of that swing fail. But so the day before it happened, I warned that there was a bunch of liquidations. I think it must have been on the 4 hour. But there was a bunch of liquidations down, and I was saying, I was just looking at the high leverage stuff, but I said it was very possible we end up dropping all the way to 107K, and a lot of people probably thought I was crazy, and it literally happened less than 24 hours later. To be fair, I did not think it was going to happen that fast, but I did think we were going to get there. I just thought it was going to take a month, not a few hours. That was the only difference. But we had the warning signs, right? I mean, I was already in a short a few days ahead of time just because I saw that potential swing. There was liquidity down there. We had grabbed most of the liquidity to the upside already. There was just a lot of stuff lining up that we could go lower. And at this point, that's why I'm saying it's kind of risky right now as far as swing positions. We could really go either direction from here. The high leverage stuff, yeah, there's way more above us. That's why I don't want to pretend that we can't go to the upside. But we do still, even though it's lower leverage, it's the 10, 20x stuff, we do have a lot below us. And that basically runs all the way to 98K. And something to consider is that if we end up going all the way to 98K, that would be another lower low on the macro trend. That would unfortunately be a very wrecked looking Bitcoin bull market, in my opinion. Obviously, that could break at any time, but we would have a new confirmed lower high on the trend at that point. Actually, it would be there. That's very theoretical at this point, right? That's just saying that we end up setting a lower low. So we have our low, lower low. That would be our highest point between the two. So that would be our confirmed lower high. And that's where, even if we got a bounce from there, I would have to start considering resistance stepping in earlier at that point, because we would have a new, very rough looking trend. And even if we broke that trend, I would then be looking for potential resistance from the full trend again. Something like this. If we broke the immediate trend, I mean, we got more resistance up ahead. So at that point, if we end up going all the way down to 98K, unfortunately, I can't say very much good things about the trend. Yeah, we could see bounces. Absolutely. You would be able to find the long positions in there. But as far as the actual trend, that would be very messy. And the cross setting, cross leverage trading, so dangerous. That's a nice trade you got, though. Still got that chunk of my short on Zcash, but we'll see what happens with the rest. Even if that ends up getting stopped at break even with the rest, the remaining 40%, I mean, especially if we get a swing fail up here, oh, I would love to short the shit out of that again. I'd even be considering re-shorting resistance. I'd want to see what the 5 minutes looking like at that point. But yeah, Zcash has my interest lately. Definitely has my interest. It's volatile as hell, that's for sure. Let's look at Bitcoin's long short ratio real quick, guys. So here's another thing, and why I was saying that I thought we could go lower is basically as soon as we saw retail start to step in with longs again, as soon as we saw that little bit of a reversal, just basically as long as retail longs are climbing, the price has the fuel to go further to the downside. I mean, let's zoom into the 1 hour. It's a lot clearer. But you can basically see that as long as retail was climbing, basically becoming very noticeable around here, I mean, you can see that retail just kept trying to catch that knife the entire way to the downside. Retail was trying to step in and buy that the entire way. And that just gave the price more fuel to the downside. So at this point, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see shorts starting to step in soon now that we are getting back down to some important support levels. As we start taking out some potential resistance here, I wouldn't be surprised to see retail start to short again, thinking that, you know, all hope is lost, whatever, time to get bearish as we test support. And if we see those shorts start to reverse to the upside a little bit, I think that would be a great sign that we are going to test higher into this range again. But at this point, it's just a little early to say, and it's not always super obvious, obviously. But it is kind of funny looking at this and just seeing you can literally watch retail FOMOing in to all the wrong positions, right? Right as we get that resistance retest here. Like, let's just look at this. This is why I call a Stuber fib setup a perfect bull trap, is look at the long short ratio below us. You can see that the longs started climbing and the shorts basically started dropping off after we end up retesting that resistance. You see FOMO kicking in at resistance. The retail longs start to climb, and as they climb, the price goes down. You can see that everyone's scared to short. Everyone thinks that we're going to bounce right away, so nobody is shorting the market, and that's why it keeps going to the downside, is that, you know, it's just the market makers taking advantage of retail, basically. And that's the thing. So, like, let's say with Zcash, for example, again, that's where there is a big difference between testing resistance and retesting after a structure break. So here's a perfect example. Here, actually, let me erase everything here. Let's just go with this support level down here. So we end up breaking below that support level, but we reclaim it. The fact that we reclaimed it, yes, that is a bullish sign, and that is a good long position to end up taking on something like that. However, that was still a structure break, so that's one of those times where we get the structure break followed by the retest. So this still technically has bearish structure as long as we're below these lows here. But that's where a typical Stuber comes into play, right? This is just a typical Stuber setup, something like that. But yeah, so absolutely reclaiming that level. That's where you can get into a long, but just start to be careful and start paying yourself at resistance, basically. Not saying even to close the whole position, just don't ignore resistance and start, you know, just respect it and take some risk off the table, take some profits, that sort of thing. Don't have to catch every trade. It's not like you have to short this if you're not feeling bearish on it. Just be willing to protect yourself is all. Could I pull up the ratio on Zcash like the long short? No, that's a Bitcoin only on the MDX dashboard. Oh, other than how Adrian did it, I guess. I don't think you can look at the chart, though. Loving BloFin. Nice, nice. Yeah, I've had no problems with them. They've been good. I even recently I did look at. I used Grok to put together a list of whether exchanges are known for doing freezing, account freezing, and whether or not they trade against their own customers, basically. And AI Grok, according to Grok, it ranked quite well. So far I've been liking it. I've been with them for probably a year and a half, maybe even now. I trade on some dexes as well, like Hyperliquid, and Aster. I still have a Bing X account. I still have a MEXC account. Did the test withdrawal went through no issue? Right on. Yeah, I've done plenty of withdrawals from it too. I've never had an issue, never had a KYC issue, anything like that. MEXC is the best in that. MEXC loves freezing accounts and trading against their own customers, yes. So that's one of those things where, you know what, yeah, maybe they have cheaper fees, but I would not trust having much of an account there. My MEXC account, maybe I shouldn't totally talk shit about them, but I just don't have a lot of faith ever since I got liquidated on a position. It was just an isolated one, but I had my stop loss and a 20% profit, and that position got liquidated. Not stopped out, liquidated. And I haven't traded there much since. A little bit. Some spot bags and stuff on the harder to find stuff for the lesser known stuff. Some random low cappers, stuff like that, but yeah, guys, Bitcoin's really trying to make a run for it. So I mean, at this point, the fact that it is breaking some, even just some 1 hour microstructure, and the fact that we ended up breaking that 5-minute trend like I was talking about. So again, guys, actually, so even though we got into that 1 hour resistance, this is just another lesson on that very basic market structure I was talking about. The fact that we had a low here, lower low here, confirmed lower high here, or if you wanted to consider it this, and this, either way we ended up breaking it. So however you want to look at it, whatever. But this is where we were talking about it before, that hey, we had a high here, higher high here, that would be our confirmed higher low here. We never ended up breaking that, right? Then our next higher high is right here. This is our new confirmed higher low. Never broke that. Higher high, we have a higher low right here. If we end up pumping higher here, then we have a new higher low right there. It is micro analyzing, but it is looking at the market structure for what it is on just the immediate swing, right? And yeah, it's just the swing on the 5-minute in that case. But that structure goes a long way. And no matter what anyone says, as long as you get a strong understanding of very, very basic technical analysis, it will go so much further than any amount of fundamentals you could ever study. As far as trading, investing, totally different. But when it comes to trading, understanding charts is just, it'll do so much more for you. And at that point, you have invalidations in mind, you have profit levels in mind, and then you have nobody to blame but yourself if things go sour. But also, that means that you're not relying on anybody else, right? So many people like to, when they get wrecked in the market, people love to cope, and people love to blame that, if this wouldn't have happened if Trump never mentioned tariffs, when we got that big dump the other day or the other week. This wouldn't have happened if Trump never announced the tweets. Yeah, but guys, why was I in a short 2 days before it happened then? It's not, again, that sped up the process, but that trade setup is exactly what I was looking to trade. It just happened a little quicker. But again, it was all based on charts. I know we joke sometimes that I'm in Trump's inner circle, and that's how I call those levels. But literally, guys, I don't follow fundamentals. Like I said, as far as Jerome Powell's speech yesterday, literally didn't even want to know what happened for hours after, because I thought it might cloud my judgment. Just so many people look for that edge and just understand that market structure, and backtesting charts it'll take you so much further if you want to be an actual trader. That is something I can say with a lot of confidence. That replay feature on TradingView has so much value to it. Anyways, guys, I think that's about all I wanted to go over today. So hopefully you did find this stream useful. For those of you who did enjoy how I approach these markets purely based on charts, be sure to check out my new YouTube channel, the Crypto Trading Channel, where I share most of my thoughts on the market pretty much every day. Doing live streams there pretty much every day. And yeah, with that, I'm out. Stay safe, my friends. Peace.